Hello YouTube, Lawrence Owen here with Colts Law, about ready to go over the Colts and Tampa Bay game. Kind of go over what went wrong with the Indianapolis Colts. But before I get started, I really need to plug myself a little bit. If you're watching this and you enjoy this content, please hit that like button and then subscribe. That way you get notified when I come out with new stuff. I cover mostly Indianapolis Colts stuff, cover them very, very heavily. However, I do cover all the other rest of the NFL teams. I'll go over Monday night football games, Thursday night football games, all sorts of stuff. Please, I would love some subscriptions. So please smash the like and the subscribe button. Also, I am on Sportscaster, sportscastr.com/ColtsLawUSN. Hit me with a follow there as well. I think you might have to make a profile before you follow me, but hey, it's like 30 seconds. You'll get notified if you follow me when I go live, because I do a lot of live videos every day on Sportscaster going over different things in the NFL. A lot more often than I do here on YouTube. You could also check me out. My podcast is on just about any platform that you could think of, whether it be Breaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Castbox. It doesn't matter. I'm there. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at Colts_Law, and of course, Patreon. Anyone who follows me on Patreon and becomes a Patreon supporter, no matter how much you support me on there, whether it be $1 a month or $10 a month, $20 a month, it doesn't matter. No matter how much you do, I will provide you with 2 Patreon exclusive pieces of content every month to show my thanks for your support. Also, as soon as you do become a supporter, I will shout you out on that week's programs that I do, whether it be whether it be on Sportscaster, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on my audio podcast. Doesn't matter. I will give out thank you to you. And if you want, send me a message after you do so. Ask me a question or anything. I'd be more than happy to respond. And I'll do that on my live shows as well. So with that out of the way, let's get in to what happened with the Colts versus the Bucs. Behind me, as you see, I have what I consider the 2 players of the game for both teams. Obviously, Jameis Winston had over 450 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. Wow, player of the game. On this side, we have Darius Leonard for the Colts. That will linebacker, that boy had 9 tackles, a pass defense, a couple tackles for loss, 2 interceptions for over 90 yards, and a touchdown. That 77-yard pick six was absolutely gorgeous, and he's well-deserved of player of the game by Colts Law. I don't know about other places, but I think he deserved it by and far for the Colts. Because quite frankly, there was some situations in this game that I think that the Colts really, really need to get a handle on. Okay? First off, everybody's going to say, well, the secondary was awful. Jameis Winston threw for 450 yards and 4 touchdowns. Well, don't forget, he threw 3 interceptions. Right? I mean, Malik Hooker got a tipped interception. And Darius Leonard, as I said already, had 2 interceptions. And I think that's why Matt Eberflus stayed with zone defense so much, because they were getting turnovers. But I think that was a mistake on Matt Eberflus's part. I think the players played well in the secondary. You're like, how in the world do they play well when they're giving up 450 yards? Because that's what zone does. Right? And in a zone, there are so many holes in a zone where a wide receiver or a tight end or a running back can find an open area, and all the quarterback has to do is just get them the ball, and there's no one there. They have to run to make the tackle. They're not there to make the defensive stop. Matt Eberflus loves zone defense too much. He should have played a lot more man in this game, especially in the second half when he was noticing that Jameis was just picking apart this zone defense. The zone defense had so many holes in it that the pass rush couldn't even get to Jameis, because Jameis was getting rid of the ball, within about 2.5 seconds of the ball getting snapped. That's not enough time for a pass rush to get there. He'd hike the ball, he'd take a three-step drop, and almost immediately throw that football because his receiver was in the open spot in the zone. Matt Eberflus needs to mix in a lot of man. I understand that Kenny Moore wasn't in this game, due to his injury. And that is a huge loss because he's one of the top two, in my opinion, nickelbacks in the AFC. I think him and Chris Harris Jr. are the top two. Now, that being said, Jacoby Brissett had an awful game. Yeah, he didn't have any turnovers like Jameis Winston did. But man, in the first half, he was like 25% completion percentage, right? He ended the game with just over 50%. And it was almost all on him, all right? His ball placement was god-awful. This is something that he either needs to learn and pick up. He's had, 13 games to get this right? His ball placement's not right. He's throwing behind his receivers all the time. He's also still don't understand when to throw a laser beam into a tight coverage and when to lead a receiver with a softer pass. He's got to learn when he can lead a receiver with a softer pass when that receiver on his route, on his continuance of that route, has open space in front of him. He could just kind of loft it out there, let the receiver run under the ball, catch it, and make yards after the catch. But when he laser beams it, he doesn't give any time for himself or the receiver to adjust to the ball, and he's throwing it generally behind the receiver rather than in front of the receiver so he can catch and run. The receiver ends up having to slow down, stop, reach back, grab the ball, and even though it might hit their hands, it's a very difficult reception. Ask Jack Doyle, who is one of the best receiving tight ends in the game. And when I say receiving, I mean hands-wise. I'm not saying he's got the skill sets of a Zach Ertz or a Travis Kelce or a George Kittle. I'm saying when that ball is in his range and he gets that ball in his hands, he's as sure of a catcher as there is in the NFL. And yet he was targeted multiple times and just came down with, I think, 2 or 3 catches. Most of the passes that was thrown his way was behind him. And it was very difficult for him to catch. Same with Paris Campbell. He finally came back in this game. Now he's on injury reserve. That sucks. But he came back in this game, had like 5 targets. Jacoby targeted him 5 times. He only came up with 2 catches. Or 1. I can't remember exactly. But come on. And the fact of the matter is most of those was either at Paris's feet or behind him. Now, he's a 4.3 speed guy. You got to lead. You got to lead Paris Campbell. If you don't lead Paris Campbell, then there's no point in him having that speed on the field. Okay? We need a quarterback that can do that. And if Jacoby can't show me in the next 3 games that he can start leading his receivers a little bit rather than throwing it behind him or at them, then I am 100% in on let's find a new starter for next season. Okay? I have been on the Jacoby bandwagon for a long time, all season. Just give him time. Let him adjust to this season. Don't count 2017. Figure out this is a new system, new players, new everything, new playbooks. Let him learn everything. Now, he's had almost the entire season, and he still has a lot of problems. He's fixed some of them. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want him off the team. I think he's still going to be a really great backup. But if he can't start learning how to lead a receiver, then there's no point in going out and getting more receivers for him to throw to because he ain't going to be able to lead them anyhow. I'm sorry. If you have an average, if Eli Manning can lead a receiver. Eli Manning. Did you see the game on Monday night? Eli Manning was leading his receivers and allowing them to make the play so that he didn't have to. And they did. Jacoby just needs to learn to put a little touch on the football and lead his receivers sometimes. Okay. So that's my complaint. Also, just to go back on the whole Matt Eberflus thing and zone versus man, You know, a proof of that, of why it was because he was zone rather than man, was a simple fact that if you look up here, right here, right? You see where that says 7 players with 3 or more receptions? That's proof that it's because of zone defense. If it was man coverage, you wouldn't have that many people with that many receptions and more. Because I'm sorry, Rock's pretty good. All right, Pierre Desir's pretty solid. There isn't 7 guys in the slot, playing slot receiver out there. I think he threw to 9 different players, and 7 of them had 3 or more receptions. Come on. This is a zone defense problem, and Matt Eberflus needs to learn that sometimes you got to mix man in there a lot more heavier than what he does. Especially when they're chewing up your zone defense. You got to make that mid-game adjustment and start mixing it up and hiding the fact of what kind of coverage it is. Because if the quarterback hikes the ball, before he even hikes the ball, he knows there's going to be an open spot here, 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 and here. And all he's got to do is know which route's going to get to that spot first and then just throw it to that spot. There's nothing you can really do about that unless your cornerbacks know exactly what the receiver's route is and they can jump the route. A.K.A. what Darius Leonard did twice sitting back in his zone and was able to reach up and grab the ball that was thrown, Jameis Winston thought was high enough to where Darius Leonard couldn't reach, but let's just realize that Darius Leonard has a 7-foot wingspan, and Winston's not used to that. All right, so I will be back later with some more YouTube videos, but for now, this is what I've got. Please check me out on Sportscaster. That is where the majority of my stuff is. Please follow me. I'm looking for as many followers as I possibly can. That way I could get as many live views as I can, because on Sportscaster, live views is what everybody's leaderboard for the month is based on. Okay? It's only live views. So if you could watch me live, I post out on Twitter, and usually about at least an hour before I go live. So give me a follow on Twitter. Give me a follow on Sportscaster. You'll get at least an hour notice before I go live. That way you'll know to be watching. And then you can join in the live chat with me on Sportscaster. We could talk. We can have a discussion back and forth, deciding on if you don't agree with something that I say. Yeah, we could talk about it, right? Give me your point of view. All right, so I'm Lawrence Owen. This is Colts Law. I want to thank you for joining me and watching this. And until next time, have a good one.